Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed with the second topic this morning. Speaking on the topic titled Sitecore Installation Framework, SIF Quickstart is a team lead of the horizontal integration. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Welcome on stage, Mr. Hardeep Bhamra.
All right, are we all set? Okay, awesome. So I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of you yesterday, and there's one question that comes in my mind is that how many of you are from DevOps background? Awesome, I see 2 people. Great, awesome. At least I have some fellow DevOps guys here. So I work as DevOps engineer with horizontal integration. Horizontal has been building Sitecore websites for the past 13 years from, starting from US, and then we have operations in Baroda as well. I have been working on Sitecore from the days of 6.1. So it's been almost 9 years for me. And, started from the days where I used to work on the manual deployment, starting from the blade servers, physical servers. Some of you probably have had the opportunity to work on those type of environments where you pull in the blade, do the manual installation, then finally moving on to the virtualization, and then finally on to the cloud platforms, specifically working with the Azure environment. So topic of the day is Sitecore Installation Framework. We'll be focusing on that. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet a lot of you, and there were a lot of questions related to DevOps. How do you do the deployments? How do you do the CI and CD? And there was one guy, we had a good discussion about the, the SQL stuff as well, the Azure SQL stuff as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'll be focusing on SIF. Okay, there's a session. Once I'm done with my session, I think Victor is going to do that on cloud. So hold on to your questions for the cloud. Let's focus on SIF. However, if you still have any questions related to cloud, you can very well connect after the, after my session. I'll be more than happy to give you my insight on cloud, how I work with cloud, or how I at HI do the implementation on Azure clouds. So let's begin the presentation. Okay. All right. That's me, and that's my buddy Alfred. Okay, it would be very bore to not to introduce somebody and just do the presentation alone. So I thought I'll introduce someone who probably is similar like me and been working in the industry for the past 15 years, doing a lot of Sitecore installations and deployment. So I and Alfred came from the same background. We both do the Sitecore installations for the talented people that you have been hearing since yesterday. That includes Kiran Patil, Pratik, Alok, Muktesh. I support them in the background. Okay, they are the guys who build the websites for our company, great products. So I support them in the background. Okay, so Alfred has been working in the industry similar to my experience, and we have had same set of challenges. The challenges includes how do you get Sitecore up and running fast? Okay, that's been one of the biggest challenge. If you come from similar background like I do, where I started from the days of doing manual installation. You used to go and make the changes in the web.config manually, set the connection strings, set up the IIS instance, get the SQL database up and running. If there is a need to replicate the SQL, then you probably have to take it from that perspective too. So that was a lot of work, manual work involved in getting the Sitecore up and running, even if it is just your developer environment. That means even if it's just your own machine, it used to take a lot of time, okay? And then you did have the facility of, using the EXs that Sitecore used to provide in the old days, but then still, there's still a lot of manual work involved. Then we moved on to the, the virtualized environment. The life became a little more easier. And with the introduction of DevOps, with the automation, we all are focusing now on getting the environments up and running fast and quickly, right? So that's the focus of SIF. The idea is to see that we get, let's say, for example, XP single as an instance, and we want to get it up and running very fast. Now, when I say very fast, I say about 12 to 15 minutes, you would have an XP single environment running on your machine, which is amazing compared to how it used to be in the past. Because if you really want to appreciate your present. If you really want to be, looking forward to the future, you have to look into the past, right? That's a good comparison. How you used to do it in the past, how you're doing it now, and what probably would be the future and how you're going to do it. We all know that it's going to be cloud. We all know that it's the automation that we are trying to focus. So considering that, I'm going to be doing a SIF demo, okay, which is a little counterintuitive because the demo would not take more than 12 to 15 minutes. I've been given a session of about 45 minutes, so I think I'll have a lot of time for the question and answers. The whole idea of getting Sitecore up and running fast is using the SIF, so should not take more than 12, 15 minutes of demo. We have some slides, we'll run through it, and in the end, we have some question and answers. I'll be more than happy to answer it, but just one request, limit it to SIF because there's a cloud session happening afterward, okay. All right, SIF introduction. So let's say the agenda. We'll be doing the SIF introduction. We'll be talking a little bit on the Sitecore topology as well. Since with Sitecore 9, there are pre-built packages available, the web deploy packages available, talking about experience management, experience platform. So we'll be going through those few slides very quickly. We'll also look into the SIF advantages, why you should be using SIF, and there are other variants of SIF available. Some of our community, Sitecore community people have worked on SIF-less as well, but ultimately it runs SIF in the background. Okay, so we'll talk about SIF advantages. We'll talk about SIF prerequisites. That's going to be a long list. The reason being is that if you satisfy the prerequisite, everything else becomes pretty much easier, right? That's the only challenging part when you do the SIF. Okay, and finally we'll have the demo. So what is SIF? So SIF is a PowerShell module. Has anyone ever used SIF? Awesome, a lot of people, fantastic. So we all probably are, getting our hands dirty with SIF, which is how it should be because that seems to be the way forward. So it's all built around the PowerShell, right? We know that PowerShell was introduced a few, versions ago along with the Sitecore. And I, being the DevOps person, I would like to work with automation. PowerShell for me is the way to move forward because that makes my life easier. When I prepare a script for a specific requirement, it's just repeatable code for me. Okay, I do not have to do it every time right from the scratch. Okay, what I do is that I prepare a script and make sure that every time I want to run it, I get the same desired result when I did it for the first time. I would do it 10 times, it's going to be the same result, okay? So that's the benefit of PowerShell. And similarly, SIF is built around for the PowerShell for handling the installations and configurations of your Sitecore, whether it is local, whether it is remote, whether it is on the production side. Okay, let's not get confused between SIF, how is it going to help you on the cloud? That's a separate topic. We are talking about SIF on your environment or SIF on infrastructure as a services. When you work with Azure or when you work with AWS, there are different platforms that you get, IaaS, PaaS platforms. So SIF is going to help you in, when you work on IaaS platform or your own developer environment. Built on top of PowerShell, and it is instance free. When I say instance free, it's not specifically tied to an XM or an XP instance or any specific other scenarios and hybrid scenario. It's instance free, right? It's PowerShell modules. You can use it, you can extend it the way you want to. So there's no limitation about, if there's a separate version available for the experience management or a separate version available for the experience platform. No, it's just one module, completely separate, deploy in PowerShell, import the modules, and get up and running. Installs web instances. There's about 25 to 30 steps. I mean, the script runs very fast. I did not have the opportunity to list down each and every step because there's close to about 25 and 30 steps that the SIF does it for you. Okay, it just does not deploy the Sitecore. It does a lot of other activities. It gets this database restored for you. It creates the IaaS instance for you. It will set the permission. It will do the certificate. It will install the certificate, right? These are all the major tasks that we all, coming from the DevOps or the infrastructure background, used to handle in the past on a manual way, right? This is what SIF will do it for you. Your life is much more easier. You can probably, spend some more time in researching and learning new things instead of spending half day on doing the Sitecore installation. All right, let's talk about what SIF is. I've already given you a little introduction, but we'll still go in a little more depth and try to understand. It uses, configuration file to install Sitecore shipped with web deploy packages. So like I said, Sitecore already gives you the pre-built topologies, whether it is experience management or experience platform. You simply have to go onto their site, download. Along with that, you get a lot of instructions as well, how to deploy the Sitecore, and the document has given you the instructions about the modules as well. So pretty much your first source of information when you want to learn SIF, you should be going onto the Sitecore documentation. It's amazing, right? They have simplified for you. The most important thing, if I can emphasize again, is going to be the prerequisite list. So make sure that you run through the prerequisite list, okay? It takes the JSON file as an input and run with the PowerShell, okay? If you see the future, okay, we're talking about the automation, and with automation comes in the JSON. There are other languages as well, You can probably use Terraform, you can probably use YAML or even PowerShell as well, okay? But since I have been working with JSON, when I'm trying to build the enterprise platforms for my clients in HI, we work a lot with JSON because it's pretty simple, key values, run some processes in between, and that makes your life easier. You can get up and running on Sitecore, on Azure environment. We did a recent XP Scale installation for one of our client in US, and the full-blown XP Scale that includes application inside. If you have the experience working on the Azure, there are a lot of challenges with the application inside. Specifically, when you want to monitor the utilization of the resources, that includes memory and CPU and hard disk, and maybe the 404 and a lot of other things, that becomes a little more challenging. And some people prefer to do it in the manual way. We like to do it in the automated way. Okay, so that probably becomes a JSON file of 1,400 lines. How do you edit it? Okay, but that's going to be the future probably, and you should spending a lot more time in understanding how do you work with the JSON. And SIF is probably the good start to do that, because SIF, when it tries to create the certificate or the configuration, in the background, it calls for the JSON files only. Sitecore fundamental module will help in SSLs, create self-signed certificates. Some of you, if you've had the opportunity to join Alok's session yesterday on XConnect, you would understand that's one scenario where everybody is trying to learn and understand how XConnect functions, how do you interact with XConnect. So that's one area that SIF also helps you with. It installs, it gets your XConnect up and running as well, does the certificate part for you. Even if you do not have a purchase certificate, if it's a self-signed certificate, PowerShell SIF will do it for you. I have to use those things anonymously because ultimately it's built around the PowerShell. So when you want to create a certificate, SIF along with the PowerShell module should also help you in doing that. Okay. Like I've been saying, pre-configured instance available, Sitecore XM01, XP01. If you would like to know more about what is experience management, what is experience platform, I again encourage you to go through the Sitecore documentations. But basically, Sitecore experience gives you a lot more feature on personalizations, marketing, and those things compared to experience management. I'll be focusing on XP single because that's the closest I can get to what usually in HI we would do if we want to set up a Sitecore instance on a developer's environment or on a staging or a dev environment in-house or on Azure platform. So I'll be focusing on the XP single. I'll give you some insights about the XM as well, just from a point of view where you would like to know what type of roles the XM and the XP comes up with, what type of XConnect roles it comes up with. So just a very brief, quick introductions on the different topologies that Sitecore already provides you. So with XP single, you get 4 Sitecore roles, that is your CD, content delivery, content management, processing, and reporting. And similarly, you're close to about few more roles with the XConnect as well. In case when you're deploying it from cloud perspective, when you do XP single installation, okay, even as a matter of fact on your own local machines as well, there's going to be only 2 sites, IaaS instance rather, if I could clarify on that point more. Only 2 IaaS instance, one is going to be for the Sitecore, the other is going to be for your XConnect, right? That's what we are going to be seeing. And just 2 instance, you do not have to go and work with the IaaS, SIF does it for you, okay? I hope you can see the image. That's the only image I was able to download from the Sitecore. Not pretty clear, but that's okay. Okay, so you would see, there are only two instances. One talks about on the upper left-hand side about single instance, and the other is for the XConnect. Rest all is databases. There's close to about 14 databases that gets installed along with XP single instance. You do it on your local machine. That includes your core, web, master, processing, reporting, collection, reference data, shard databases for the scalability and for the temporary database point of view. So there's a lot of database. Imagine if you have to do all these things manually, how much time you would be spending. I keep on emphasizing the time again and again because that's what we all would like to do it. We would like to finish it as soon as possible so that we can focus on the other priority stuff instead of spending a day on deploying the Sitecore. Okay, XP scale, again 4 Sitecore roles, content management, CD processing and reporting, and few more roles on the XConnect part as well. Topological diagram, you can very well refer it from the Sitecore if you would like to know more about it, or if you would like to discuss more in depth about any of the role, I would be more than happy to help you after the session. XM single, well, like I said, what's the difference between when you talk about experience management and experience platform? It's no analytics and no marketing features in the single. CMS only mode runs content delivery and content management role on a single web app instance. Okay, topological diagram for the XM single. XM scale, Sitecore experience management config that runs both the content delivery and content management roles on the same instance. I want to spend a little more time on the prerequisites, so I'm running through these slides quickly. All right, safe advantage, Sitecore installation to be fast and same across all platforms. That's one challenge. If you have been working as a Sitecore developer, if you do some coding on your system, and when you do the release or the deployment, it doesn't function. And we say, it works on my system, might not, some problem with your system. So what we try to do here is that we try to create the same instance, okay? The idea is to make sure that whatever you have it on your system, you have a same replica running on your dev environment, stage environment, production environment, so that you get out from that problem of saying that it works on my system, something wrong with your system. So it's a repeatable code. Every time that you want to create an instance, you make sure that you have the same instance available. When you try to introduce a manual process, that's a problem because manual is always prone to errors. Accidentally you might not make in settings and then you see and it's not functioning for me. So what we want to do is make sure that we do it same every time, repeatable code. I've been working with Windows 10 on the local developer environments, Windows 2012 R2 and 2016. I did not have the opportunity to do it on Windows 8.1. Has anyone of you done on Windows 8.1? Safe? No? Windows 10, anyone? Awesome. So we are all working with the new Windows 10, which is fantastic. But then, yeah, the code, the document says that it can be done on the Windows 8.1 as well. I've done it from Windows 10 onwards, okay? Sitecore installation is for on-premise. We will be focusing on the on-premise instance for now, as again, there's a cloud session after this, and I hope Victor will be talking more about the cloud point of view. I want to focus on the development environment. You as a developer, okay, if you do not have somebody coming in from the infrastructure background or from a DevOps background, if you are responsible for setting up the Sitecore as a developer, you would like to get that job done as quickly as possible and focus on writing the code and building the features, functionality, and the components. So we'll be focusing on the local developer and the DevOps machine. And we make sure that every time it is consistent so that, you can have your, I use Packer and Vagrant just to create the virtual images so that somebody comes and says that, hey, I want to have an XP single instance. Could you please do it? For me, it's pretty easy to get Windows 12 to work function with Packer and Vagrant and make sure that your Sitecore installation gets deployed through that. Okay. Has anyone ever used Packer or Vagrant? No? Okay. Any idea what Packer or Vagrant is? No? That's okay. Absolutely fine. All right, helpful to developers and DevOps team both. We collaborate well, so to make sure that the instance is similar to every developer, okay? Even if I'm doing an XP single installation, it might, if an individual is doing on his system or her system, it's probably going to be a little different for him and her, and then somebody else it's going to be different. So the idea is that it doesn't really matter whether you have 5 or 10 or 50 Sitecore developers, it needs to be similar every time for everyone. Okay, so we can just code, we can have JSON files, we can probably copy it in a repo, you can pull down the repo, you can run the instance. I don't have to come to your system to help you out, or even though you don't have to come and ask me for the help. That can be put on the repo, you can just pull it down, run the code, and it should give you an XP installation quickly. The only requirement probably would be to make sure that you have the modules deployed in your local instance. Obviously, you cannot pull that from the repo. There are pre-configured topologies available, we already talked about it. XM and XP, so I'll not go in much depth on that. Prerequisite is one real challenge, but then everything else is easier. If you can just take care of the prerequisite, everything else becomes much easier for you, okay? I would encourage that you study the Sitecore documentations because they are very nicely written by the people who have probably done it multiple times. That will give you more insight of how the SIF installation needs to be done, okay? And learn from your experience, okay? That's what I do. I have my own way of learning, reading, and making sure that we keep on improving from there on. All right, let's talk about the long list now, okay? And this is more important. Why? See, as a developer, you might have Visual Studio, SQL, and everything already pre-installed in your system, and you might not worry about the prerequisite list. But imagine a situation where you want to do it in a virtualized environment. Okay, you probably are working on multiple projects at the same time. Okay, so what happens is that you have multiple repos and codes and branches running in your system, and then probably your system is all cluttered up. And what you would like to do is that have your own small virtual box or VM image running in your systems. You want to test it out before you release the code or commit the code. You can do it through some of the virtualization tools available. I use VirtualBox. In the demo that I'm going to be showing it to you, I'll be using the VirtualBox. So what you can do is that you can have your own separate environment within your own system. You're using a developer desktop or a laptop, and you can have it your own virtualized environment. So that once you're done with the testing, you can just simply get rid of it and you don't have to worry about it, okay? Like I said, we have been tested it on Windows 10 and fine. Coming to the point where I said that as a developer, you would have Visual Studio, SQLs and everything pre-installed on your system because you're a developer. Imagine a situation where you want to do it on a Windows 2012 or a Windows 2016. You would not have any Visual Studio on that or a SQL Server on that. That becomes a challenging part, okay? Works with .NET Framework 4.6.2 onwards. As again, I've never tried with the older version. I'm not even sure whether it functions that. The documentation says that it starts from 4.6.2, so that should be pretty good. Microsoft Visual Studio, the redistributable, DLLs. As again, this refers to the environment where you are working on 2012 or 2016, not on your local desktop, because local desktop you will have all the requirements already available. Java runtime, obviously you would need a web server. Okay, the NSSM for the Solar services. PowerShell 5.1 or later. Sitecore modules. I'll be showing you a demo on Sitecore modules. Sitecore recommends that you get it from the PowerShell online rather than manually deploying it because it's pretty easier. You can automate that task as well instead of manually downloading the PowerShell modules, importing the PowerShell modules in your session and then working along with them. If you simply write in command install -module, fetch it from the PowerShell online gallery, that's an automation part. So that's pretty easy instead of doing it manually on your system. SQL Server and data tier application framework. If you see the packages that Sitecore gives you, whether it is XP or whether it is XM, you get it in as .DAC extensions, right? That's cloud focus, okay? And that's what you do it when you do it on your local system as well. So what you should be doing is that you should be opening up your packages that when you download from the Sitecore and see what are the files that I see in those zip files, whether it is .SQL for some of the activities that you need to be doing for the SQL, or there are some .DAC files. from the database point of view. And there's still going to be that zip of Sitecore as a package, which we have been all used to of seeing that. So I encourage that you open up the files and see. Hopefully, if we have the opportunity, I'll show you too as well. It's just to see what exactly you get in those packages. I mentioned Sitecore Azure Toolkit mostly from a cloud perspective. So that's something that you can very well ignore if you just want to do it on your local system. Web deploy 3.6 URL rewrite is another thing that you would need. There's one interesting scenario that you might come across when you try to do it through the safe installation, and that is if you're doing the X-Connect, the X-Connect probably will not work with 443. Okay, that's because your Skype, if you have been using Skype on your local desktop, that also runs on 443. That's officially documented in Sitecore documents. So just make sure that you change your Skype to some other port and probably have your X-Connect continue to function on 443. Just as a word of caution, as again, when you read the documents, you will get to know each and every steps that's already mentioned in there. Okay, that's been my source of information too. We'll be using XP single package. When you download, you get three things, okay, which is your on-prem, right? The packages have been named in a way where it is easier to understand that this is for the on-premises. This is for your local machine. This is for your virtualized machine. Or this is for your even infrastructure as a services if you have been working with Azure or AWS. This is not for the PaaS platform, okay? You get separate packages for the PaaS platform. Okay, a separate package for XP Connect and some of the configuration files which are in JSON. Again, just a list of the XP packages that includes your Solar, your XP Single JSON, your X-Connect Create JSON, Solar JSON, and some of the X-Connect sessions as well. Now, I'm running through this list quickly is because this is something that you do not have to make the changes. You simply download them, you run PowerShell modules, that's the SIF module, and it should do the work for you. You do not have to make the changes unless you want to extend, unless you want to change something or customize something. If you simply download how it comes in the package from the Sitecore, that should do your work. All right, let's see a quick code demonstration. There's going to be some prerequisite already set. That means for the sake of the time, I've already installed my SQL. I've already done my Solar because Solar takes a little bit of a time. Web servers, all the prerequisites that you saw from DACFX point of view, that's all been already pre-installed because getting through the prerequisite list itself is about an hour and a half or so, depending upon your experience purely, okay? Depending upon what environment you already have. So what I've done is that I've already gone through that list and I'll be focusing more on the XP single. I'll be showing you some of the steps and then we'll see, okay? Let's see the demo now, okay? All right, so this is where I've used Packer and Vagrant because I did not wanted it to be in my own desktop or laptop that I've been using. So just to give you just a very quick idea about what Packer does, is that it helps you in creating images, operating system images. You pre-bake it with the tools or the resources that you want to already have it, take that image, give it to somebody, and that individual would be able to up and running, right? I'll not go a lot into the Packer and Vagrant, maybe sometime later on. But let's focus on the demo now, okay? All right, that's little let's increase the font size. Okay, so the first one is for registering the repository. As again, this has been picked up from the Sitecore documentation itself. Nothing new, nothing very fancy. You do it from the repository. Just use the register PowerShell repository, and then Sitecore gallery is already there. That gives you a couple of modules, which is the framework and which is the Sitecore installation. Source is again available in the document, but I'm still putting it for you. Here is sitecore.myget.org, and then PowerShell and the version. I've been using SIF version 1.2, 1.2.1. Okay, you install the module. I install both the modules, which is Sitecore installation framework, install framework, and the other module is Sitecore fundamentals as well. That helps me from a security perspective in case if I want to do it. Otherwise, the Sitecore install framework should get your work done. Okay. Once you have installed the module in PowerShell, as you would understand, you will have to import into your session. Okay, that's what I've done. I've imported both the modules in my session. I'll just quickly show it to you what version I'm using. All right, so that's 1.2.1 Sitecore install framework, and it gives you all other different PowerShell modules pre-built in it. This is the one that gets you up and running with your SIF installation. Solar. Again, I put it here. I made sure that I had to include this as part of the prerequisite because otherwise I would be spending a lot of time in getting through the solar, talking about solar. So the focus is SIF, hence what I've done is that I've just pre-installed it already. I only made few changes here, okay? This Sitecore gives you already, right? Your life is already pretty much easier. You do not have to write the script. Go on the site, download the package, it is there. So some of the parameters that I already set, obviously the solar version required is 6.6.2. I've set the path for when I'm going to install the solar, the port, the name of the host, and whether I need the SSL or not, run through it. This, what it's going to do is that if you do not have the solar already available in your system, it's going to download it for you. You do not have to download, okay? Again, part of the automation, what we do is that it will go and fetch the solar from the site, download, call the packages, whether it is NSM, solar, or build the schemas and everything. So it will do it for you. You do not have to worry about it. Let's focus on now getting your XP single up and running. All right, fingers crossed. Doesn't really matter how many times you do the demo, it's always little. All right. So let's talk about what I've already set it up here. Most of the part is already available. I just wanted to customize it from my own perspective. For my own demo purpose, I wanted to name it in a certain way. I wanted to have it in a certain path. The instance name, I wanted to call it in certain ways. The databases that I'm installing, I wanted it to be named in a certain way. So these are very small changes that I'm making. I did not have to write down a whole script of doing it for SIF. That's pretty much available. You go, you make the changes, and then you just run it, and hopefully it will give you the instance up and running. So that's the idea. Right from the beginning, I've been talking about there are things which is already done for you by Sitecore. You just have to read through the document. You just have to understand the script, make some changes, and hopefully you'll have an up and running environment in about 15 minutes. All right. So I'm setting up the parameter. I'm setting up my script root path where I've copied all my packages. I'm talking about the name that I would like to give my to XConnect. I'm naming my Sitecore instance as well. I'm providing this solar URL as well, because that's one important part where I wanted to, the script needs the solar instance information, which is your solar 8983 / solar URL. All right, don't use that password. It's only for the demo purpose, if you can still read it, okay? You can see that my SQL server name is Vagrant 2016 SQL Express because I have worked with Vagrant. I did not want it to be part of my own instance. Once I'm done, I can very well delete it. or I can keep it safely in the repo somewhere, and then somebody else needs it can use it. I provided the SQL as a user to make my life easier. The password has already been coded in it. Let's quickly run through. These are the functions, and install Sitecore configuration is where the actual scenario will happen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to hit F5 and hope that everything will go smooth and nice. In case if there are any challenges, we'll go through. All right, so the only question I want this script to ask me is that what is the name of the instance that you want to give, which is your IIS, nothing else. Everything else, whether it is database, whether it's your any other instance, XConnect, the configurations, everything will be done by this script. Like I said in the beginning, there's close to about 25 to 30 steps that this script does, so I don't have to worry about it. I probably will spend a couple of hours in figuring it out, making changes, but thereon every time that I want to run this script, it is going to do similar task for me. All right, so I'm going to be naming it as simply as demo. Now this probably is going to take about 10 to 12 minutes, and you probably would not, if it goes all smooth, you might not be able to see a lot of activities. So here's what I'll do is that I'll make a note for you, what it all is going to do it for you. All right, so to begin with, it's going to make sure that you have your IIS instance path set in a specific way. For example, C:9 pub root, where do you want your environment to be set up and running? All right, this is going to fail. From my experience, I think, nope, success, okay. Awesome. I've done it so many times that I thought at some stage when you come across particular error, you probably think that it's going to fail, but it did not, so all good, okay. So to begin with, the script is first going to do is that it's going to ensure the path where you're going to set. It's going to create the app pool for you, okay. It's going to set the permission of the application pool in the IIS for you. It's going to create the physical path. It's going to stop and start the XConnect services for you while it is still deploying the Sitecore packages, okay. It's going to make the host entry for you. See, the amount of automation that we are trying to do here is that we do not even want to go and make the manual changes in the host file itself, right? That script is going to take for you. You simply have to run the script, make sure that it functions properly, and you will have an up and running environment in about 15 minutes. It's going to install the WDB packages, web deploy packages, that includes your XDB databases too, for the processing, for the reporting, marketing, collections, and other things, okay. Add the database, that's also a part of the script. It's going to add the database for you. It's going to set the license. Obviously, you'll have to provide the license. Being part of HI, you have the privilege of having some demo licenses available for the testing purpose. So you'll have to provide the license as well, but it's going to copy that license for you. Add the web feature for the SSL, okay. Install, start index, stop the index, start the application pool for you. These are all the activities that you have been doing manually if you have not been using SIF, or in the past, this is all that you have been doing manually. And imagine the amount of time that you save when you start working with SIF compared to when you were doing it manually in the past, if you come from the same background that I come from. Okay, it's going to configure the Solar schema as well for you. It's going to create the course as well in Solar. Going to start the demo website, start the application pool back again, set the permissions, do the web bindings as well for you in the IIS. Again, a manual process, something that we used to do it in the past manually, but that's been done through the SIF now. Set the host headers, deploy the site, and hopefully we'll have it up and running. We talked about the number of databases that it's going to, again, this number of databases is going to be limited to the topology that you install or topology that you download, whether you're using experience management or an experience platform. Specifically for XP single instance, it's going to do 14 databases for you. Everything is available in the DACPAC files, the downloads that you do from the Sitecore. It is there. It is going to restore it for you in the database. Okay, that includes your core, master, experience forms, marketing, reporting, processing, XTP collections databases, and few more. So in total, about 14 databases it's going to install. Somewhere you would see it's running through the schema. It's going through the Solar, right? Starting the Solar, as you can see, updating Solar 6.6.2. That's the version that is needed. So it's going to update that too. It's going to start the Solar services for you. It's going to create the Solar services for you. You do not have to go and do the Solar restart. The script is going to take care for you. All right. Host header, we talked about it, right? It actually went, I just spoke about it, and then it went and made the changes in your system, 32 drivers and host file. That's amazing because I don't have to do it manually. And every time I want to repeat, the same code is going to be repeated, right? If I do it manually, it's probably, I'm going to make a mistake. Okay? So that's a great thing about working with SIF. Makes my life easier. I spend a lot of other times in doing some other activities. All right, where are we? All right, it's installing the WDB packages. This probably is the second last or the third last step. This is going to take some time. Like I said, in general, when you do the SIF installation, it takes about 12 to 15 minutes in getting your package up and running. But to reach to this stage, I had to get my prerequisite done for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, provided I do not have a Visual Studio, I do not have a SQL server, I'm working with a virtualized environment. That takes a lot of my time, but if you can suffice the prerequisite, everything else probably should be going to be much easier, okay? All right, let's see what else we can cover till the time it's doing the deployment. Okay, all right, let's have couple of quick questions till the time. I might have to, go back to the script again, but it's going to take some time. So if you have any questions while the deployment is still going on, you can pretty much ask. Yes, sir? Well, see, whether you use a local account, whether a domain account, you would ultimately need SQL availability in the backend. Okay, the user that you are going to be using should have the rights to install or deploy the packages in a SQL server. Okay, I have mentioned about the SA server that I'm as an account that I'm using to get my web packages, the DAC files into the SQL. So unless you have the rights to deploy in a SQL server in a local environment, I do not see any other option.
No, we were defining the SQL username and password, so we were not able to define your domain username and password over there. So
okay, so I understand your question now. You wanted, instead of doing it through the SA, you wanted to do it through the, well, certainly you can do it. I do not see any reason why you cannot do it, right? I just wanted to make my life easier, and I've been using a local account, but that you can certainly do it through the domain as user as well.
It doesn't work for us. I don't
well,
know.
then there must be some permission related issues, but SQL does allow you. SQL does allow you to use the domains as well. You can pretty much do it as well. I haven't tried it, but I do not see a reason. If I forgot about the SIF for a moment for now, if I say let's focus on the SQL part, whether the SQL allows me to use a domain account or not, it does, right? So it should be able to help you with that as well too. So maybe some permission related challenges, or what they could have done is that, even having a domain account probably is a greater risk, because you might have the access to some other as well, right? You could have asked for a single local user who has got the access to deploy the packages in SQL. instead of them, maybe that security policy would not allow a local account.
Their security policy says we have their the domain account, right, onto their domain. And they want to give access to that domain so that I would not be able to share it with anybody else.
Right.
So that's the reason.
I'm sure that thing seems to be probably from a security point of view. I do not see any other challenge in that. Maybe we can connect, go a little in depth and try to understand offline and see, what could have happened wrong. But for now, I see permission issues.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Right. In case you have questions, ladies and gentlemen, please do ask on the mic.
All right,
So
where do we have reached? We have reached to the Sitecore URL level, so I'll have to switch between questions and the demo. Yeah.
Hi, this is Jendran from Nistec.
Hi.
Actually, we are creating websites and installing instances through Sitecore Instance Manager right now in our current project. This also does the same thing, like deploys Sitecore packages and install instances in IAS and writes the websites in a host file and like restoring the databases. So just in case if you aware of that, could you differentiate between those
Those two tools, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a good question. Probably I should have covered in my point as well. SIF gives you the ability to deploy it on the cloud. Okay, it gives you an feature when you want to do it with the Azure. Some of you, we have had a discussion about the Azure PaaS platform yesterday. We have been talking, and then there were questions about how do we do it on PaaS. We had a session yesterday done by a Microsoft guy of deploying it on Azure. Okay, SIF gives you that ability to do it on the Azure cloud. I haven't seen that ability in the SIM. I haven't worked a lot with the SIM, but one difference when I see it from my experience or the documentation is that SIF gives you that ability to deploy it on the cloud. From your local instance, you can deploy it on the Azure straight away, right? Okay. With SIM, probably, SIM has its own great features. You can take backup. SIF doesn't give you uninstall. One of the things probably, if all of you have been working with the SIF, is that it doesn't give you the ability to uninstall, okay? SIM gives you that ability on a local instance, not on a cloud platform, to deploy, to backup, to uninstall, and maybe a few other features, right? SIM is a tool, okay? SIF is a framework, right? So when you compare a tool with a framework, obviously there's going to be a bigger difference because framework is more extensible compared to a tool, which is going to be a limited one. I hope I answer your question. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, awesome. Before I take another question, let me tell you that we have successfully deployed Sitecore XP9, and I don't think it even took about 15 minutes, maybe less than that. Let's go to the browser and see that whether it is up and running or not. Awesome, right? So we have, I did nothing. I just gave the name, right? I would have worked in the past, in the background to make sure that demo is successful, but trust me, that's only a one-time activity. Now, if I give you the script, okay, you run it, every time you'll get the same, if you suffice the prerequisite list, every time you are going to be getting the same instance, whether you do it on your 8.1, you do it server 2012, 2016, you do it on an Azure IaaS platform, it's going to be the same result. That's what we all want, right? I do not want the developers to come and say that it's running on my system, probably something wrong with your system, right? Maybe you made the changes, you have configured in a very different way. No, boss, here's the file. You run it on your system, you do it on Azure, it's going to be same every time, right? It has actually done the XConnect for you as well. I'll try to show you that. Right? Does it XConnect for you as well? That's one thing that I would really worry about if I have to see it from a Sitecore 9 perspective is XConnect. How do I get my XConnect up and running fast, right? This is what it helps me with, okay? You want to see the, obviously when you have landed on the home page of Sitecore, it's pretty much easier that it's understood that you would get the access to the admin panel too. There you go, right? Now, all that I have done in front of you is that give it a name. That's it, right? 90% of the script is already available with the Sitecore. You want to customize the way you want to, you can. You do not want to customize, just give it a name and you'll have an instance up and running, right? All right, let's take some more questions.
Yeah. Up till 8.2, we saw, we are creating the databases, like restoring the databases, and we are creating the users as admin user and giving the sysadmin rights and making it the admin for the databases. But now we see, each and every database has its own user created when we go and look into the connection string. Why do we have that in place? And also, where do we control that, username and password, these things?
All right, great question, but that's probably for the Sitecore guys to answer why they have architected in that manner, right? Let's see how I visualize it. I, as a DevOps guy, how do I see it? Okay, for me, it's a security feature. Amazing, Instead of having one SQL user or one domain user having the access for all the databases, and probably, if I'm using a domain user, it's going to have the access for the application too. That's a problem for me, because if accidentally, there could be many scenarios. Somebody could delete that user, somebody could probably make the password change. There's X number of scenarios, right? So at least from a security standpoint, from a security standpoint of view, it's a good thing. Secondly, you're using different users, right? Which is always advisable, because you use one user that's probably going to have access to everything. Let's have a separate user, right? But from a architecture point of view, probably more insight Sitecore would be able to provide you. I've had instances, or let me put it that way, have I ever used multiple SQL users for my databases in the past, whether I started working from 6.1 or 7.2 or the version 8, right? We have done it many times, right? We have done it for an active passive environment too. In the old days, when you used to work on a virtualized or an physical environment, you used to have one data center somewhere probably in the in the eastern side of the US, and then probably in a passive zone in the western side. I would never give same SQL user what I'm giving it for my database into the active environment compared to what I'm giving to the passive environment, because a passive environment needs to be safeguarded every time, because that's my failover plan. If for some reason, failover could happen for multiple reasons, for performance issues, for security issues, outages, X number of things could happen or go wrong into the masters. We have done that in the past. So will I at least, see that benefit of having separate users being used in the database and in the SQLs too, right?
And where do we control these namings of the databases? I mean, the users, basically. I couldn't find it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the DACPAC files. If you go and see how they have been named, so that's been picked up from there. You only append the prefix to it. Like, let me show you the database. Right? So those are all the databases that it created for me. I gave my prefix as demo, and then everything else. It's all meaningful for me. At least I know if I have one SQL server and I have multiple instances of Sitecore running, demo 1, demo 2, demo 3, it's much easier for me to identify. The way they have been named is pretty much, you can relate with it, right? It's core, it's master, it's processing, it's reporting, it's collections. If you want to change it, right, that needs to be part of the SQL scripts that comes in. You need to dig in more into the SQL scripts and see if you want to change it. I never had the opportunity to change it, or the need to change it rather.
Okay, my question was on the user management perspective as well, like like even the names of the username and the passwords.
Oh, you can change it in the Sitecore admin panel. It gives you the option of changing the users. You're talking about the admin users?
No, I mean to say the database users.
Oh, the users that are used to connect to the databases, right? Oh, I mean, that's been prefixed with the name that I provide. That's part of the SQL scripts. There are SQL scripts provided with the packages. When the users are being created, I would encourage that when you download the package, you should open. There are many SQL scripts that's available in the package, and one of them is probably responsible for setting up the usernames. Right? Those are SQL queries. I'm not a database guy, but those are SQL queries, and then that gives you the the opportunity to change it.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Any other questions?
Hi.
Which
here.
side?
Okay.
Where are we?
Yeah. So the one of the advantages you mentioned on SIF versus SIM was on the cloud deployment, and one of the prerequisites is also having the Azure toolkit. So do we have support for AWS?
From a PaaS platform, not yet. That's my experience, right? There's a partnership, as we all know, between Sitecore and Microsoft. So from a PaaS platform, the facility is already there, whether you want to do it through the portal, whether you want to do it through the Azure toolkit, because Azure toolkit is used to deploy packages on a PaaS platform. Okay. So I have never done it through the portal, right? Being a guy, responsible for setting up the environments for my own team, we have always used the JSON, right? And I see as at least the short future, unless something changes and you start using YAML and some other languages. But as of now, JSON is what we prefer, using the Azure toolkit and deploy it on the Azure. AWS, I haven't seen. We use Sitecore. Some of our clients who's got legacy instance on AWS, for example, 7.2 or version 8, any version of version 8, they all been using infrastructure as a services, not platform as a services, right? So that's maybe something for Sitecore in the future. I mean, beyond our control.
So does it mean that if we want to use SIF with AWS, we need to do a customization on top of it?
Right. See, right at the beginning of the presentation, I said that there are two things that we are talking about. One, SIF is for your local instance. Okay. Local instance where you have the control of the machine, whether it is your own system, whether it is your infrastructure as a services server that we've been using on an Azure or an AWS as well. The system where you can RDP, log in, set the environment is where you can use the SIF, right? So anywhere. As a matter of fact, even if you can get on Google, cloud platform, if you can RDP, I don't have any experience with Google, but let's think about a hypothetical situation where you want to explore Sitecore on Google. If you can get an instance, VM instance up and running in Google, if you can log in into it, download SIF, you can very well run on it too as well. Right?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. No. Nope. Not that I know about. As of now, it only helps you in deploying. There are different tools. We had the same question yesterday in one of the Microsoft event session that happened. Sitecore gives you the tools to do the upgradation, but SIF doesn't. That's what my experience is, that you have to go step by step. That's always advisable. There might be possibility of going it straight away to some other version, but I would never prefer to do that because there are going to be a lot of code changes. The architecture would have changed a little bit as well in that process. So I always would advise you going step by step so that you know that at least that's how I have done. If I say on my experience point of view, I've never jumped on to the one version ahead. If I've been working on 6.1, I would probably go to 6.2. I will take it step by step instead of just jumping it to 7 or an 8. Right? All right.
Gentlemen, please, if you have a question, kindly ask on the mic, otherwise it creates confusion.
Hello? Hey.
Yeah. So the extension to what he asked, typically the migration process has to follow a specific step-by-step approach. But what happens to typical, let's say, like there is a component library which has already been done. And is there a process in Sitecore or within what you have experienced earlier for upgrading the components, especially the library? Because certain times a upward version may not be like supporting the previous. It's not backward compatible certain times. So what are the measures one should really take when we actually upgrade the Sitecore version and also update and upgrade the component library?
All right. So this is a little off the topic, but I will still answer from my experience, how I would done it. Like I said, when I have to upgrade my Sitecore instance, I always follow the document of the Sitecore. That's going to be version specific, right? There's not going to be ever an instance where it's going to be a generic steps that you would have to follow. There might be some generic steps, but there would be some steps related to specific versions as well. So when I did in the past from 6.1 to 6.2 or any version by working along with this team itself, right? Though I was only responsible for the infrastructure or the DevOps side, I had to work very closely with the developers, because when you talk about the components, when you talk about the functionalities, features, and XYZs within the Sitecore, that is where they come into the picture. My role was to assist them from an infrastructure point of view. The instruction needs to be coming from two sources. One is the Sitecore itself, where it tells you how do you want to upgrade. There are tools available which you can use to upgrade the versions. And so you would have customized some features too. You might not be using the plain vanilla Sitecore that gives you and whatever the existing features. You can very well do that. But then the point is that we would have customized it for our clients. That customization would have done by your development team. So the DevOps guys or the infrastructure people needs to be working very closely with them and making sure that that is successful. I think I'm just running short of time. Maybe I can take one more question. Yeah.
So how about a Docker implementation? Any experience with Docker implementation using SIF?
Well, on a trial basis, to be honest, I haven't used it in a production environment because my perspective, I think it is still at a very initial level. Okay, I had a discussion, I forgot the name of that gentleman, I had a discussion on Docker as well yesterday, where we tried to do it in-house, like how I did it with Packer and Vagrant, because I wanted that environment to be done and dusted once I'm done with the demo, okay? Similarly, I could use Docker as well. What I did is that, because initially Docker started as a Linux as the base platform, and though I come with that Linux background, but I wanted to do it on a Windows environment. So I started it with Windows 2016 that gives you the feature and the facility for Docker. I used it, but that was only from a testing point of view. And then one of the challenge that I find in Docker, when it's not just about Sitecore, when you want to deploy an application inside Sitecore, the instance that you copy, okay, because Docker is a slimmed down version of an operating system, okay? All the features, bells and whistles that you get within 2016 server, you probably will not get it with the Docker unless you install it specifically then, right? So the challenge becomes when you want to, do the Sitecore or the SIF. As a matter of fact, it's got its own prerequisite list. You talk about the redistributable DLLs and the SQLs and a lot of other features that needs to be there in the Docker. Imagine if I had to spend about an hour and a half to get it done into a local environment, how much time I would have to spend inside Docker. So my experience with Docker is that it certainly is, people have been saying that it's the future, right? And I would like to believe that, but I think it's going to take some more time before we say, let's start using the Docker as well from a Sitecore perspective. There are a few community members who have blogged about it. I'm one of them. I've blogged about it like a year ago on how to use Sitecore along with Docker, the older version of Sitecore. But that was only from the trial basis. I never had the opportunity from a production point of view or a development environment point of view to work on the Docker, right? Awesome. I think, guys, I'm already about 2 minutes. So I really appreciate for, all of you listening to me very, with patience. Thank you, everyone. It's been nice to meet you all, and hopefully we'll stay connected through some channel. And let's see. All right, if you would like to stay connected, that's my email ID, Bhamra @horizontal integration. Feel free to write it down, email me, and I'm happy to share my experience, right? Whatever I have been doing it for the past 15 years almost. So thank you once again, and have a great day.
Thank you, Hardeep. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a 15-minute break. It's a tea break. I'll see you on the other side after 15 minutes. That is at 11:15. A quick reminder regarding your social media posts. Hashtag SUGCON 2018, hashtag horizontal integration, hashtag Hardeep Bhamra. Please post on Instagram, tweet about it, post it on Facebook. Remember, we have this contest running. We'll see you in 15 minutes after the break. Thank you.